The yellow morels are probably the easiest of all the morels to find. Their size and their color makes it a lot easier to spot than some of the other species. They also grow in a wide variety of habitat as long as there's elm trees. You want to look around the dead and dying elm trees. The ideal elm tree to find is when about 50% of the bark has fallen off. Oftentimes when all of the bark is falling off, you may find one that lasts final year, but there's usually only a couple. You usually won't find mushrooms around the elm trees until they start to die. The reason is the mushroom lives on the roots of these trees, and they know their environment is starting to die. So they produce mushrooms so that the mushrooms can produce spores. The key to finding mushrooms around elm trees, you want to get in a location where there's a lot of elm trees growing and just hit elm tree and elm tree and elm tree, and a small percentage of them is dying from a Dutch elm disease, and a small percentage of the one dying is going to have morels coming up around it. So the key is just a numbers game. You're just going to hit as many elm trees as you can. Remember to mark the tree you find the morels, because often the following year or two you can find morels around that same tree. Hey, I just found a couple morels around this dead elm tree. All the bark has fallen off of this tree, so this is probably the last year you're going to find morels around this tree. Ideally you want about 25 to 50% of the bark to fall off the tree, and that's probably the years you'd find the most morels around that tree. When the tulip poplars are done, I switch to the elm trees. The elm trees can be recognized by the bark. They often have visible shallow roots, and they also have very small limbs growing around the trunk. The leaves have already come out on the elm trees when the yellow morels come up. So when you're trying to identify an elm tree, you can look at the leaves. This elm tree here is about perfect. The bark is just starting to fall off. Most of the bark is intact if we look up this tree. But right there at the base, this tree is dead and the bark is just starting to fall off. I already picked about a dozen morels around this tree. You compare these mushrooms to the size of my hand, most of them are almost the size of my hand, maybe half the size of my hand. When you guys are out here walking, you just don't want to randomly walk through the woods. You want to kind of stay under whatever tree you're looking for. Like this is an elm tree. When I'm looking under elm trees, I want to go from elm tree to look out ahead, there's another elm tree there. And then I'm looking under far out ahead, and I'm trying to find the next elm tree, and there's another elm tree out ahead of there. So you find more morels if you staying under the tree that they're growing under. Hey, I just found a couple yellow morels under this dying elm tree. You can see this, the bark is still on this tree, but it's starting to fall off. These morels are going to be hollow inside. One thing nice about the yellow morels, often one tree you can fill a small basket of. I thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.